All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very first community call. This will be continue on a monthly basis. So make sure to tune in next month, and we will continue to update the community on the latest in tech, ecosystem, and new features. So today, just a brief overview of what we'll cover. We'll start off with Polkadot Decoded and the call for proposals. Then Alex and Hernando will give an overview of Inc. 3.0. Joe Petrowski, the protocol's integration lead at Web3 Foundation, will go over Statemint, XCM V3, Substrate Connect, and the Polkadot Kusama bridge. We'll hand it over to Raul, who's a council member for both networks, to discuss governance, referendum, and treasury proposals for the past month. Santi, who's on the Parity Ecosystem Development Team, will go over auction winners for the past month and also lead a panel with some new teams that are joining today: Mangata, SubSpace, Pendulum, and Ajuna. So without further ado, let's get started. CA, over to you.
Hi, yes. Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to talk to you today about Polkadot Decoded. As you might have already seen, we have announced the third edition of Polkadot Decoded to happen this year on the 29th and 30th of June. Just to give you a quick overview of the event in general, we have a really special edition happening this year with a full hybrid experience. This means we're having 4 in-person events across 4 different locations, including Berlin, New York, Mexico City, and Shanghai. So you'll be able to attend the event in person in one of the regional locations or join us online through the virtual platform. You can expect to hear talks from the people behind Polkadot and from those who are building on Polkadot, such as the various parachain teams, the general ecosystem, and community members. Similar to last year's Polkadot Decoded, we will be going in a decentralized format where the program is created by the community for the community. What this actually means is that we have 2 processes in setting up the program for this event. The first one being our call for proposals, which is what I'm here to talk to you about today. At the moment, we have the call for proposals open and active for submissions. The deadline was March 14th, but we have decided today to extend that to March 21st. To give you some more time to get your talks in, we just want to extend another week. We've seen a lot of great talks coming in, and we had some people asking if they could have a little bit more time. So we want to hear from as many as you as possible. In terms of the submission process, we have a range of 6 categories that you can submit your talk for, from high-level visionary talks of how Polkadot can be used, to active use cases of Polkadot's technology, to more technical deep dives into the code, such as workshops and tech talks. And if none of those formats actually work for you, we even have an open format called Create Your Own, where you can submit your talk that's maybe a little bit more outside of the box. So we are opening up the platform for everyone to speak at this event. So I wholeheartedly encourage you all to check out the proposals page at decoded.polkadot.network/proposals to see how that process works. The next phase after the proposals are closed, we'll actually have these placed into a public vote by the community. So you can go then onto the Polkadot Decoded website and vote on what talks you want to see at this year's event. So we're really trying to decentralize the program as much as possible. So as you can see, it's very exciting. We have a lot going on. We have a lot in store for you for Polkadot Decoded 2022. And I hope to see you there. And I look forward to seeing your submissions for this year's event. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, CA. Thanks for joining. So yes, head over to decoded.polkadot.network to submit your proposals. Next up, we have Hernando and Alex from the Smart Contracts team to present Inc. 3.0.
Hey everyone, how's it going? So Yeah, I'm Hernando. I'm one of the core devs at Parity that's working on smart contracts. And I guess more specifically, I work on Ink, which is our Rust-based programming language for writing WebAssembly smart contracts. Um, although Ink is just one part of the stack, this whole smart contract stack. So Alex, what part of the smart contract stack do you work on?
Yeah, so I lead the smart contract execution team, which is essentially working on the contracts module within Substrate. So the module which actually takes the contracts which are, for example, written in ink and then executes them. So the EVM of Substrate, so to say.
Yeah, and I guess over the last while, we've actually been working on like a new release of Ink, the language, alongside some improvements in like the palette contracts execution environment. So we're going to have this shiny new 3.0 release sometime soon. We wanted to do a little bit of shilling and give you guys like a heads up of what's coming. So as far as some new exciting changes in Ink is that we've basically made the language be just Rust. So if you're a Rust developer, you can use all the tooling that you already know, full IDE support, language server, debugger, all that sort of good stuff you can use right out of the box. So no need to reinvent the wheel here. We've also been working on improving contract sizes so that contracts work better in a sharded environment. So what this means is better performance on parachains. And then we've also added some new features for better cross-contract calls and performance, making it a lot easier for you as a developer to write more complex logic. But yeah, and then there's also some changes in the actual execution environment side of things.
Yeah, so I want to talk to you about a change we did early this year. People which are around for a longer time know about this concept of tombstones. So actually our way to solve the storage bloat problem that Ethereum has. So what we did initially was that a contract needs to regularly pay a rent for storage, and if it fails to do that, it would be evicted and put and turned into a tombstone, and then people needed to revive it. And however, this solution put a lot of work onto the contracts developers, and we changed that this all now happens automatically. So whoever calls a contract, so the caller of a contract, not the contract itself, will pay for all the storage that this call created. And subsequently, if you are a caller of a contract and your call removes storage, this will get you a refund, and this will incentivize contract authors to write contracts in a way that they are use storage sparingly and allow for the removal of storage, because otherwise it would be there would be no way for users to remove the storage, and they would rather not use that contract but another one.
Yeah. So I guess like the next thing for you guys to do would really be to like go on our GitHub and check out what's going on. So the Ink GitHub is Parity Tech /Ink, so INK. And then the palette contract stuff lives within the Substrate repo, somewhere in the frame folder. We've got a couple tutorials as well on the Substrate website. So I think it's substrate.io. If you rummage through there, you'll find some tutorials on how to get started with Ink and build contracts and deploy them on your own local network. And yeah, like give it a go, try it out. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, and hopefully we see you guys building some parachains with this stuff.
Great. Thank you, Alex and Hernando, for joining us today. Next, we have Joe, who will start us off with an overview of Statemint and what to expect next.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I've been working on Statemint for quite a while, and as most people know, we launched it in middle or late December. Although Yeah, there isn't really much functionality available on it since you cannot teleport assets to it, and you can't create assets whether they're fungible or non-fungible. But that's all about to change pretty soon. So we've had two blockers to opening up statement for teleportation of dot to get dot on statement, as well as to allow people to create assets there and eventually open XCM channels and send those assets or interact with other parachains using those assets. So the first one was getting all the audits done. So like most people know, most things go to Kusama unaudited, but before we enable anything in Polkadot, we wait until it's run on Kusama for a while and also been audited. So for assets, we've had them running on Kusama for probably 6 months now, and we've also finished addressing all of the issues from the third-party audits. So that stuff is already into statement and ready to go. And the other half of that is disputes. So that's something that like someone like Rob could talk a lot more about. But the disputes protocol for how validators actually interact with each other when they disagree on whether a parachain block is valid or not, and what actually happens in that disagreement. So if somebody, for example, claims that a block is invalid when in fact it's valid, or vice versa, you probably want to slash that validator, and that hasn't been implemented in Polkadot yet. So that's the other reason why we haven't enabled asset creation on Polkadot. But that should actually be out in the next like 1 or 2 releases on Polkadot. And once disputes are enabled in Polkadot, then we will lift all of the filters. So you'll be able to teleport dot from the relay chain into statements. You'll be able to create assets, whether they're fungible or non-fungible. So yeah, that's all coming up in the next, say, 1 or 2 months on Polkadot. The other kind of tidying thing that we did is on Statemine. Maybe some people have noticed it's quite expensive to teleport KSM from the relay chain to Statemine. Actually quite a bit more expensive than it is to teleport KSM from Statemine back into Statement. And that's kind of the opposite of how it should be. The fees should actually be much lower on Statemine or on Statement than on the relay chain. We ended up finding a bug in how the weights are converted into fees, and that's coming out in the next release. So in the next, say, 2 or 3 weeks, that should be fixed on Statemine, and the fee to actually teleport will be really low, probably something like I think right now it's 0.004 KSM, and it would probably have 2 more zeros in there, so 0.00004 KSM, something about that. Don't know the exact numbers, but it should come out to be quite low. And obviously, since teleports aren't even enabled on Statement yet, that bug will never hit Statement. It'll be fixed when it rolls out there. Also on Statement and Statemine, and this kind of goes into the next topic of XCM, but there is a new adapter for NFTs. So far with the Statemine HRMP channels, we've only been able to transfer fungible assets on those channels, but now there is an adapter for NFTs, so that Statemine can interact with other parachains, or other parachains can interact with the NFTs on Statemine. So those are all the Statemine updates. I don't know if Emily has any questions to interject with here.
Yes. So are you saying NFTs in the next couple of upgrades?
Sorry?
Are you saying NFT functionality within the next couple of upgrades once teleports and minting assets are enabled?
Yes. So it'll basically come all at once on Statement. Teleports, creating NFTs, and creating fungible assets.
Exciting. Now, another thing we need would be XCM V3, correct?
Yeah. So that's also something that's been in the works for quite a while. I think there's like a 12 or 13,000 line PR from Gav in the Polkadot repo to upgrade XCM to V3. And so this has a ton of stuff. I'm not the most up to date on like the super nitty gritty details, but can give a kind of high level overview of what's changing. So first of all, XCM V0 is coming out. So we started with V0, of course, and then ended up going to V1 and to V2 on Kusama. There were a few security bugs with V0, so V3 actually removes all compatibility with V0. So if you're using that in your parachain, then it's definitely time to upgrade to at least version 2. And version 3 comes with quite a bit of new features. So besides kind of cleaning up V2, there's a lot more advanced error messages and also responses. So if executing a message from another chain actually results in an error, then it could send a message back to the chain that sent the original message and inform that chain that there was some error upon executing the instructions that were sent to it. The second thing is bridge infrastructure. So right now, XCM is kind of only used within the context of a single consensus system. So like messages between different parachains, but of course, as the acronym implies, cross-consensus messaging, it's actually meant to convey messages between not just chains that exist within the same consensus system, like two parachains in Kusama or two parachains in Polkadot, but actually entirely different consensus systems. So Polkadot and Kusama are separate consensus systems. And so XCM V3 actually supports sending messages, or it gives it the language to express that a message is destined or coming from a consensus system that the receiver or sender might not actually be a part of. So XCM V3, that's a fancy way of saying it enables bridges. So we can have bridges between multiple consensus systems. Also some other kind of little things. So there's like asset locking. So one chain can kind of request another chain to lock an asset. And so this might come up, for example, in like some asynchronous applications that want to, say you have like a marketplace for NFTs on a smart contract chain, and it's going to swap an NFT for some fungible asset on Statemint. In the process of that, it doesn't want to end up in a race condition where that fungible asset gets spent before the marketplace actually handles the transaction. And so it could send a message to Statemint requesting that it lock some fungible and non-fungible asset, let the people in the marketplace kind of sort out their agreement, and then after maybe they decide to actually go through with like swapping it, then it can send an instruction to do the swap, or it could send the instruction say, you know what, people decided they don't want to go through this, so we're going to unlock these assets. So some asset locking functionality to send between chains, and also just some better like context and message identifiers. So there's still this open issue from Statemine where some teleports got lost from V0. I have not forgotten about it. I know people ask somewhat regularly, and that's turned out to be quite difficult to identify what happened to a message, when and where it got interpreted. So there's a couple extra like features coming in that would help identify messages and make sure that they have good identifiers on the sending chain and also on the receiving chain, so that you can kind of match these up. And it makes it a lot easier for like indexers or other tooling wallets to be able to see, here's what happened to this message that I sent. It didn't just kind of go out into cyberspace and disappear. It actually got executed, and here's the results of that.
Excellent. And with XCM V3 on Kusama, motion 442 was actually passed 5 days ago to increase the maximum number of HRMP channels from 10 to 30. This was proposed by Akala because there was already such a need for more channels. Akala, or Karura, the Kusama parachain had already had 6 channels open of the 10 available. So that has been executed and approved. So there'll be more channels opening up on Kusama. Now, Joe, I wanted to talk a little bit about Substrate Connect and the whole MetaMask issue that has been all over the news this past week, and how with Substrate Connect, what's happening with Mattermost wouldn't be possible. Wouldn't happen, let's say.
Yeah, so there are quite a few avenues to go down with Substrate Connect and light clients in general. But overall, light clients, they reduce trust in full nodes. So it doesn't mean that full nodes aren't needed in the ecosystem anymore. It just means you don't really need to trust them. So right now, the way that most people interact with most blockchains is via some centralized provider, the most famous or well-known one being Infura running Ethereum nodes. But when you run a wallet like MetaMask or something else, it's usually connecting to a node run by one of these companies, which exposes you to quite a few things that you might not realize. One is that company is probably regulated in some particular jurisdiction, and if that jurisdiction has an opinion about where you happen to live, they might not want you to connect to it, and they can kind of cut you off from the network by just removing your service to it. And they can also collect a lot of data about you, right? Like they're going to see all of your addresses, how you use them. You're interacting completely via their nodes. And besides all of those issues, you are, of course, trusting them. So I don't know of many issues of those companies actually providing false information from their nodes. But nonetheless, they could. And kind of like one of the principles of blockchain is that you really shouldn't have to trust one of these centralized entities to give you the correct information. You should be able to verify that for yourself. So what light clients do is they don't actually store the entire state of the blockchain. They only store the consensus information. So they have, they kind of know like what the current block number is, what the block hash is, the state root. And these are all very small pieces of information. So they're small enough that actually on the network, they can run on a mobile phone or in your browser or in a browser extension, and you wouldn't even really notice it of like the resource consumption or like battery consumption on your phone or something. It would just be it would be syncing like very small packets of data from the network. But the cool thing is from these very small pieces of information, you can actually verify the information that does come from full nodes. So if a full node tells you that like your account holds a particular NFT or that it has a particular balance, you don't have to trust that information coming from a full node. You can actually verify that from your light client. So you can check that the full node is giving you information that comes from the chain because your light client is actually operating on the peer-to-peer layer. It's not like connected to a single full node the way that MetaMask would be connected to a single full node at Infura. It's actually a part of the network connected to lots of full nodes, and it can verify that the information they give you is actually part of the information that's in the chain that everybody agrees on. So they're pretty small, but they are pretty handy, and they do remove trust in any kind of like centralized institution and let you just access the network via a browser or mobile device without needing to without needing to rely on a single data provider.
That's awesome. Now, switching topics completely, the Polkadot and Kusama bridge, what everyone I'm hoping was waiting for. What is the latest there?
Yeah, well, the final audits are in progress, so hopefully that's done in the next couple of weeks. And I think there should be a proposal coming out to have a bridge between Polkadot and Kusama. So this would be like the bridge for substrate to substrate chains, and it would roll out between Polkadot and Kusama, and then some other kind of like relevant bridge news is that we have this protocol called DeFi that verifies Ethereum signatures and Ethereum blocks and headers and all that stuff. That's also in some pretty late stage development. Not quite as ready as the substrate to substrate bridge, but we're working on getting that out in the not too distant future. So probably in the short term, like I never put timelines on things in engineering, but I'm going to guess, say 2 to 3 months, we should have a Polkadot and Kusama bridge, and maybe in the next 6 months, possibly even an Ethereum bridge. So quite a few bridges coming out soon.
Yes, I even see that Interlay, the Polkadot BTC bridge, and their Kusama counterpart, I always say this name wrong, I shouldn't have read this, Kintsugi, is also in here right now. So I hope they particularly will need Beefy in order to bridge to BTC. So Exciting stuff. Joe, well, thank you for joining us today. It goes without saying, but I couldn't have done it without you. And next up, we do have Raul, who is a Polkadot Governance Council member, to present Governance V2 and referenda.
Hey, everyone. So I'm here to talk and walk you through about the most significant proposals or discussions in the last weeks, and also to give you a bit of a high-level reasoning behind the Governance 2.0 design for Kusama and Polkadot. Let's start first with the current discussion, past discussions. Just a heads up, everyone, the links will be shared on Twitter, but if you also want to get the links and the contextual information from Polk Assembly, you can join the Kusama and Polkadot Direction channels, or also follow some of the several newsletters that come out daily or weekly. Bill Laboon's newsletter is really great. .lib newsletter is also really great. So I encourage you, everyone, to join the Kusama and Polkadot Direction channel and follow the news there and join the discussion. So what are the most significant proposals for discussions in the last week? Well, I want to start with the Polkadot 2022 auction schedule. This was approved by Motion 158 on the Polkadot direction on the Polkadot console. As we all know, list period 7 started yesterday. Congratulations to Nodal for winning the last auction on LP6. And the first auction on LP7 will happen in block number 9,400,000. So I think tomorrow in one day. Projects can be up to for 8 list periods. But as many teams know, what happened with the last schedule was that all of the teams that won an auction had to wait to be onboarded on the next list period. And it can be a way long time wait in order to wait to be onboarded on the next list period. So this new schedule proposed that the two first auctions winners would be onboarded immediately. And then there are 5 left auctions on the next LP to be won. Now, this will follow the same logic up until LP11. So the last auction will happen on the 23rd of February 2023. So we're covered for 2022. And of course, we know that the governance can change this or pause these auctions if needed. Now, something very interesting happened with Motion 158 and the 2 first auctions in this next LP. And this was discussed and concluded by Referendum 54. Referendum 54 proposed to extend the current crop loans to the first 2 auctions on LP7. There was very intense discussion in the Polkadot Direction channel. And ultimately, yesterday, the Referendum 54 was rejected. So these crowd loans that were currently open for the last LP were not extended to the first 2 auctions of LP7. Another interesting motion that is right now up for vote, and if approved by Council, will pass to referenda queue to be voted by the community, is the Motion 168. Motion 168 aims to lower the nomination intention limits, so to decrease the amount of stake needed to submit a nomination intention from 160 dots to 10 dots, and also to increase the number of possible intentions to 50,000. So something to take into account is that this is possible as the pallet bags list is now enabled with runtime 9170 on Polkadot, and for a wider set of nominations to take place in the staking design. The staking design team is working really hard on optimizations, which we will see the results in the future with staking pools, for example, in which more nominators will be able to join, and that should be really soon. Something to take into account about Motion 168 is that if you go above 10 dots, which would be the minimum if this proposal is approved, this does not mean that you will get rewards, but the top 22,500 nominators will, and the lowest stake nominator spawn will be dynamic. Okay, this is very important to understand, but it's a step on the progress to increase the number of nominators eventually that we will see with staking pools. On the side of the treasury in Polkadot, something really important to point out is the approval of Motion 167. Motion 167 is a bounty proposal for the ORML pallet bounty that was proposed by the Akala seed. Akala has been working really hard in a bounty proposal already for a few months in order to reward contributors for the ORML pallet. The pallet is a maintained collection of Substrate runtime modules that is used widely in the ecosystem. And so the Akala seed had the great idea to request for contributions from the treasury in order to add these contributions to their bounty. This has been approved, and the next step is the curator election. You can see the suggestion for the curator in the contextual information of Motion 167, and this proposal to elect the curator should be up for vote soon by the council. Now, the third motion I want to talk about, treasury related, that is being voted right now by the council, is the Motion 169, Angel Hack Learn and Earn program. Angel Hack is a team that has been working in the ecosystem for a while and partnered before with Web3 Foundation to organize the APAC Hackathon, which was a really great success. And Angel Hack this time wants to leverage on the pre-knowledge of developers and reward them for learning more about Substrate and Polkadot in order to increase the amount of developers in the ecosystem. So please go to Motion 169, read, review the budget and the roadmap, and leave your feedback and questions for the team. And two more proposals are up for discussion as treasury proposals. These are the Polkassembly proposal and the Polkascan Foundation proposal. The Polkascan Foundation proposal is a proposal for Polkascan, a Dutch nonprofit, to become one of the first common good organizations in the ecosystem. As we all know, Polkascan has worked from the beginning in an explorer and has recently reshaped its roadmap and is now requesting an allocation and a loan from the treasury in order to ramp up their activities and the production of and maintenance of libraries. And also the Polkassembly proposal for those who are requesting more information on the governance side of things, on motions and contextual information on proposals. The Polkassembly team presented a proposal to the council in order to increase the number of information on Polkassembly, change some feature and improve them, and as well to create new functionality on Polkassembly in order for everyone to participate, discuss, and understand the governance processes. Now, all of these proposals and motions are voted with the current design, as we know. But we all know that now that we've come to mature the Polkadot ecosystem, that we see the first parachains being onboarding and connecting to the relay chain, then a lot of the teams and community members have joined and started thinking about what we call Polkadot Governance 2.0. Okay, Polkadot Governance 2.0 basically has the goal to make the governance processes much more resilient to censorship, much more decentralized, inclusive, and agile. So in order to achieve this, the main goal of this new design is to migrate the responsibilities of the council to token holders via democracy votes. And this is something that, as we know, as in our ecosystem, things happen gradually and we go step by step in order to test and make sure everything works. This will happen in a gradual way. The first changes will come in parallel to the current governance design that we have. And then once we make sure that everything works as it's supposed to be, we will do the most drastic changes, so to say. So three main points are to take into account in this particular new way of thinking governance. Everything will go through referenda queue. This means that there will be multiple origins. So for example, runtime upgrades, approved treasury proposals, parachain fixes will all have multiple different origins, which means different thresholds and turnouts. And token holders will be able to vote on all of this, including treasury proposals, in order to reward the teams to kick off projects, but also on runtime upgrades and parachain fixes. The second big change will be the dissolution of the council. The council has been working on managing the treasury proposals and initiating legislation that needs to be voted by the community. But the council is seen by many as a relatively centralized organization in the Polkadot governance design. And so once everything goes through referenda queue, the council will be dissolved and everything will be in the hand of token holders. Possibly a new body will be created. This will be the fellowship, a council of Substrate developers, so to say, which will have much more members than the council, but they will not be deciding or initiating legislation. They will just be reviewing on the quality of the code that is being added to the business logic. And the third point to take into account in this particular new design is the power of delegation. Okay, the delegation is something that already happens in the current governance design. I can delegate my power vote to another account in order for them to vote on my behalf. But at the moment, it's really limited in the sense of which type of calls can be used, or if I can choose the type of calls to delegate my votes on, or if I can choose to delegate with conviction or not. All of these features will be added in the delegation palette, and this will allow more anonymity, more participation from token holders, and also most of these delegation and undelegation calls will be free for a period of time. So the goals for this particular new governance design is to become much more agile, much more inclusive, and to become much more decentralized for a healthy participation of token holders. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you, Raul. That was a lot.
That was a lot.
Well, really cool. I mean, Governance V2 has me excited with everything from the power to the community to multiple thresholds to allowing people to vote on your behalf and so on and so forth. When could we see something like that being rolled out?
So a lot of the PRs have already been merged, so we'll be ready to see some of the changes in the upcoming weeks and months. You should expect much more information on the Kusama and Polkadot direction channels and articles written about it, explaining what this is all about. And we're also working with community members and educators in order to be able to relay all of this information to the community so they can review the changes, discuss them, and eventually vote for yes or for no on this new design, because it all depends if the community approves this in referenda or not.
Right. And and technically speaking, the Kusama community could approve it and the Polkadot not.
Yeah, correct. Technically speaking, that could happen, yeah.
Will Kusama see this before Polkadot?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Raul, for joining us and answering my questions, at least. Next up, we have Santi, who will discuss the auction winners for the past month on the networks.
Yes, thank you, Emily, for that. And hello, everybody. Bunch of people here. It's very nice to see you all around. But let's talk a little bit about these auctions that have been happening, right? So as exciting as it was last December to see the first 5 parachains collecting to Polkadot, we will have today the next 6 already joining the network, right? So Engine, Interlake, Composable Finance, Centrifuge, HyDX, and Nodal. I know who have been following the latest Nodal auction against Equilibrium was quite fascinating to watch. All of them will be onboarding to the Polkadot network tonight. At block height 9,388,800, which is going to be roughly around 11:30 p.m. UTC. Remember, please, that this is when the onboarding will start. However, parachains will start producing blocks roughly 4 hours after that. With all these new 6 parachains connecting to the network, Polkadot will itself be hosting already 12 parachains in total, showcasing this very specific domain-specific blockchains producing blocks that are all being secured by the Polkadot relay chain and are all interoperable between themselves, right? So these teams that we have already with these 11 community parachains plus the common good parachain statements range from DeFi use cases, NFTs, real-world assets, smart contract platforms, Bitcoin bridges, as Intele was saying, Emily, before, etc. So it's sort of like this sort of multi-chain future that Polkadot always envisioned is already happening here, right? And I want to double down a little bit more on what Raul was saying before, because this does not end here. As Raul said, motion 158 voted basically on approving the new schedule for auctions. So yes, in block 9,388,000, the new parties will be onboarded. At block 9,400,000, the new set of auctions was going to start. These auctions, as Raul was saying, are going to be split in two, right? The first two of the lease period will onboard automatically, and the last 5 will onboard on the following next period, right? Given that we already have this schedule until February for next year, we are talking about almost 40 parachains altogether connecting in the next couple of months to the Polkadot ecosystem, which is quite impressive and quite interesting, in my opinion, at the very least. And there's also like sort of a co-host here as well on the Twitter space, Canary Network flying around our ecosystem, Kusama. And Kusama has been spearheading this parachain model for almost 1 year already now, which is a lot. Of course, fulfilling its Canary purposes, right? In Kusama, so that you guys remember, slots range for 48 weeks, which is around a year. And if the first parachain is connected around a year ago, that means that these teams will need to start extending their leases again, right? So we saw on the previous auction, and we are seeing now the same thing as well, this sort of like anonymous bidder, right? Like we can call it an anon parachain if we wish, placing a direct bid instead of opening a crowd on Kusama to win an auction for the very, very first time. And after winning the slot, this anon parachain revealed itself as no other than Moonriver, right? In a very clever and funny tweet, at least for me. So Moonriver has since secured 1 more year in the Kusama relay chain. And this altogether opens a new chapter in auctions for the Polkadot ecosystem as a whole, right? Showing how different strategies can be played by different teams in different moments of the product cycle. It is not the same if you're connecting for the first time that if you need to renew your slot, right? Which is interesting. Kusama has now 27 parachains in total, 2 of which are common good. And it's onboarding around 6 parachains per lease period. So it's also going to be having a ton of parachains by the end of the year. But not only that, we, as Emily said at the beginning, we also have here today some guests that are building very interesting projects in the ecosystem. And I wanted to give them some time to tell us what they're all working on. So today we've got Alice and Bob, I'm going to call you that way, from Mangata. We've got Jeremiah from SubSpace, Nicolas from Ajuna Network, and Jonathan and Gonza from Pendulum Chain. I can see here that you guys are already speakers, but if not, please do let us know. So following a little bit that order, right? So starting with you, Alice and Bob from Mangata. Would you tell us a little bit what Mangata is all about so that everybody gets to know the project?
Hi, Santiago. Hi, everyone. Good to be here today. If I heard you correctly, block production will start in the middle of the night of where I am living. So I'm already looking forward to be up in the middle of the night for Mangata X to start. Yes, I will.
But it's Friday.
Okay, I will not start with the pitch, but I will start with a problem, and that is that we think DeFi is broken. And it was broken actually before it even was built, and that is the case with Ethereum, because Ethereum launched in 2014, and back then transactions were actually not designed to be private. They were designed to just work. And we are feeling the consequences today because Ethereum has a structural problem, and that is called front-running and miner extractable value. So put in easy terms, miner extractable value is when nodes, validator nodes, are selling out their own users to steal from them when they are trading. So for example, you are trading on an exchange and you define a slippage, and that slippage is now being stolen by nodes who see that you're having that slippage when you submit the transaction, and they are swizzling in and putting in transactions that take away your slippage by manipulating the pool. And this seems like a minor problem. It's only like 0.5% of your trading volume, but it is actually orienting the whole economy around that thing, because now there are private mempools and there are bots, and the whole network of Ethereum is congested with miners and front runs. So this is a problem that is slowly but surely crippling Ethereum, and if we are not very careful, it is also starting to creep into other ecosystems. On Ethereum, we see that $1 billion at least has been stolen in last year. And so this is where Mangata comes in, because we are saying we need to fix this. We need to keep up the original promise of a permissionless financial system where everyone is treated equally and not a few value extractors are stealing from everyone. And so Ethereum is not fit to fix that problem, and it is a problem that could even bring Ethereum down. But with Substrate technology, we actually have a solution at our hand to take this in our hands. It helps us to change the rules of the system, and what we at Mangata are now doing is we are saying, let's build a chain from the ground up that is optimized for capital efficiency and fairness. And Substrate is the thing that enables us to do this. So maybe to put it into easy terms, what does a trader want to do? They want to trade and they want to have the best prices. So they don't want to pay a lot of slippage and they don't want to pay a lot of extra fees just to do their trades. So what Mangata X is actually doing is we're having a no-gas economy. We are preventing front-running and mine extractable value. And we want to attract calmer and more loyal liquidity with a new mechanism that we're calling proof of liquidity. It's an iteration of proof of stake, but you're actually staking liquidity and not native tokens to secure the network against front runners. That's the story.
Thank you very much, dear Alice and Bob. Very, very interesting stuff, right? And it sort of like showcases the power and how you can write your own rules to make this very specific parachains work for the favor of the overall community, which is quite interesting. But moving a little bit onto another use case, I want to understand a bit more, Jeremiah, if you could help us understand what SubSpace is about.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having us here today, Santiago. It's really an honor to get to speak to the Polkadot community. So my name is Jeremiah. I'm the co-founder and CEO at the SubSpace network. We're a small but very quickly growing team, international remote first team. We recently announced a funding round, and we're really lucky to get featured in TechCrunch as well, and we're also hiring. So at SubSpace, we really care very deeply about decentralization, about environmental sustainability, and also about scalability and making Web3 as accessible to as large of an audience of developers and also just creators and non-technical people as possible. And so we're really quite well aligned with the same values, I think, that drive everybody here in the Kusama ecosystem. So we're actually building a new layer 1 network. And the focus of our network is to really maximize participation in consensus from ordinary users with their home computers by providing their free storage. And this space that they're providing is actually being used to build a permanent decentralized storage network, or API, for Web3 developers that can operate at truly massive scale. So you can think of this as a unique twist or a kind of a hybrid of Chia and Filecoin. So Chia has this storage-based consensus as well, which is very open and permissionless. Anybody can participate in by providing their free space, but it's kind of useless storage. It's just random data. Filecoin has a more permissioned kind of storage-based system. Requires very powerful hardware, but they are providing useful storage. It's temporary storage, so it looks more like Amazon S3. And we provide something which kind of has the open nature of Chia, but has a more permanent kind of storage solution. So basically you pay once and the data is stored forever, but it is useful storage. And it's at very, very massive scale, which allows it to be very, very low cost as well. So I'm sure you're wondering what this storage can be used for. And what we're actually using it for right now is we're backing up the archival history, so basically all of the blocks, all of the transaction data of the Polkadot and Kusama network, everything that's live today. So the relay chain and all of the parachains that are live, we're backing these up on our test network. We were lucky enough to get featured in Parity's blog back in November about this. And what this is doing is it's basically ensuring the permanent history of the entire network is stored forever, and it's offloading the burden of running archival nodes from the individual parachains to this decentralized storage network that we're building, which is kind of shared and load balanced across to everybody. So basically, this is kind of like an archival node as a service. It allows you to bootstrap a node without needing to sync to have an archival node on the network, to bootstrap from Genesis. Right now, it's more on the right side, so we're able to back up and ingest all this data. We can make it accessible. It is accessible through our storage API right now, but we're definitely working on improving the read side and also validating this data as it comes in. So validating the finality proofs, the grandpa proofs as they come in, so that we can know that we're actually on the longest chain of Polkadot and Kusama. And what we're hoping to get out of this, what we're working towards building, is really a unified, decentralized query API for the transaction block history of Polkadot and Kusama. We've also recently demonstrated that we can do NFT storage integrations with Statemine. We're working on doing this with some other parachains, so there's some examples in our GitHub of how to do this. So basically, if you want to mint an NFT on some parachain, you typically don't store the asset data, like the image or the video or whatever the asset file is on chain. You're going to store that perhaps in IPFS temporarily, or in a lot of cases on your own server. And one of the use cases for SubSpace is to really give this NFT metadata the same guarantees of persistence as the NFT itself, and make that decentralized and permanent as well. We're also looking at any kind of generic off-chain storage, also asynchronous cross-chain storage, where you could perhaps take the state. If you have too much state on a chain, you could snapshot it and store it, kind of back it up on our network, and then retrieve it asynchronously when you needed to. So those are some of the use cases. And I'll say that we really wanted to be a parachain, but unfortunately our consensus algorithm was a little bit too novel for that. We're still definitely exploring a parachain slot for both the Polkadot and Kusama networks. We'd really like to have a dedicated bridge into the network. We're also, considering a bridge hub as well, sharing that. And just a couple things that are coming out soon about SubSpace. So right now you can actually run a farmer on our network, on our testnet. It's not an incentivized testnet. Right now you need to be able to at least operate a command line interface to do so. We've got several hundred nodes on our network right now on our community testnet. We're getting ready to release a desktop app very soon that's going to make this much easier to do. And we're also working towards launching an incentivized testnet. I don't have a specific date on that yet, but I can say that we're working on launching it very, very soon. So you'll actually be rewarded for participating in this even before we go to our mainnet launch, which we're hoping for later this year. If you are a builder, or if you're a developer, I'd really encourage you to take a look at the alpha of Subspace.js. It's our developer SDK. It's what you can use to store and retrieve data on the network. It's what we're using to back up the Polkadot and Kusama history and do some of these NFT integrations. And I really encourage everybody to take a look at our website, subspace.network, and follow us here on Twitter. Thanks a lot, Santiago.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeremiah. Very detailed and indeed very interesting, right? Another use case, like providing services unique for the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I want to listen a bit more about Ajuna Network as well. So Nicholas, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Santiago, for the invitation, and happy to move on to the fun things with the universal, I think, language of gaming. So with Ajuna, we're building the infrastructure for the future of decentralized gaming. Ajuna is essentially the fastest way for developers and game studios to create high-quality, decentralized games. We achieve this by seamlessly integrating tried and trusted game engines like Unity and Unreal with the world of blockchain and NFTs. But just a bit of a backstory maybe about the team. We are gamers at heart and sort of game developers in mind, we started by wanting to create our own game back in 2018, and sort of we were experimenting and looking at sort of the underlying infrastructures available to us, and yeah, as a lot of people, we were falling onto the same problem. Blockchains were too slow, and thus sort of the user experience that we could offer was pretty bad. And it was, I think, about 1.5 years ago when we stumbled upon the Substrate Builders program, and yeah, essentially, I think that enabled everything, and Ajuna was sort of born. I think everybody saw that last year, suddenly the NFT market went into a multi-billion-dollar industry. But when you look at it from a gamer's perspective, NFTs or in-game assets really gain their value from their functionality and from their usage inside a game. A good example is I don't know if anyone has watched the movie Ready Player One, where there's this holy grenade, which is clearly a very expensive NFT, but it would be worthless if the world it inhabited did not exist. So with Ajuna, we're building an infrastructure, as I said, for decentralized gaming, and hopefully down the line we will be able to build some holy grenades ourselves. The problem that we see currently in the market, I think, is quite common to a lot of people. Blockchain as a technology is quite sort of a mountain to climb when you see it from the perspective of a game studio. Even choosing on which infrastructure to build upon is sort of a problem on its own. And when you look at the current sort of state of games on the blockchain and you compare it with the traditional gaming space, really the experience is rather poor on the blockchain. At the same time, we have seen the importance of community when it has to do with gaming just over the past decade. I would say the relationship between studios and gamers in the past used to be very transactional. I build a game, you buy it, you play it, end of story. But we've seen the importance of community, both in the good and the bad. A good example last year was an indie studio which released a game called Among Us. It did a great job with its community, and suddenly it became sort of a massive success. On the other hand, big studios, and a good example was Cyberpunk 2077. Clearly a game that could have been a Game of the Year candidate, really failed to meet community expectations and sort of failed quite miserably in terms of the reputation for the studio. But community may have sort of a critical role, but still they have no real voice in game development, no real voice in how a game is deployed or the future of the game. As a result of all of these problems, you see sort of the industry consolidating quite a lot. So you have massive companies like Microsoft and Sony buying up every game developer, which leaves then sort of those indie studios in quite a perilous situation, because fundraising for game studios has been notoriously difficult, and as a result, they have to go into a dependency with probably a large publisher like Steam, which not only will take away close to 30% of their revenues, but it will also limit them creatively quite a lot. So with Ajuna, we solve these problems with our 4 solution blocks, which is connect, build, launch, and profit. With Connect, what we do is, as I mentioned in the beginning, we seamlessly integrate the world's leading game development engines like Unity and Unreal into our layer 2 solution, thus sort of ensuring that both a game engine and the game logic can be truly decentralized. With our build solution, we create, let's say, a modular toolbox for on-chain features such as, let's say, leaderboards or multiplayer and tools like that developers can use for the game development. But our support really doesn't end there. With launch, we understand that it's really important to be able to support these indie studios, and we open up our own community of stakeholders and also gamers in order to be able to support them both on a fundraising, on their fundraising activities, but as well as sort of their launch and marketing efforts. For us, we are clearly very committed to the Polkadot ecosystem. The idea of having your own sovereign blockchain and the interoperable future is really what enables, let's say, this future. In terms of our, I would say, sort of just as a last point, the way that we sort of have built out our architecture, Polkadot really gives us the trust and security that we need With the Ajuna parachain is where we get sort of our storage and sort of our access into the multi-chain. And then with the trusted execution environment is where we get our speed and our privacy. So yeah, that's a bit about Ajuna. Please follow us on our channel, and yeah, happy to connect with everyone on this call.
Amazing, Nicholas. Thank you very much for the rundown there, right? A parachain made by gamers, by game developers, for game developers, which is quite interesting indeed, and with a very novel architecture to fulfill the needs of this very specific vertical, right? Very, very cool indeed. And last but not least, we've got Jonathan and Gonza here from the Pendulum chain team. So yes, why don't you guys walk us through a little bit what Pendulum is all about?
Thanks, Santi. Hi guys, I'm Gonza, lead engineer at Pendulum Chain. We are really happy to be here with all of these talented teams. I'm here along with Jonathan too, who will give you an intro to the project and where we are at now. And I'll be here also for any technical follow-up questions that may arise. So yeah, I'd hand over to him now.
Yeah, hey everyone, this is Jonathan. I'm the community manager of Pendulum. Our pleasure to be here today. And yeah, I want to start by giving you some background into where we are originating from. So Satoshi Pay, the fintech company behind Pendulum, has been involved in the blockchain space since 2014 and is led by a very experienced team. And yeah, we chose to build on Polkadot because we believe it is a very thriving ecosystem and it suits our needs best for all the intents and purposes that we have. And yeah, we are very excited about all the opportunities it's providing. So yeah, to go a little bit into what we are about. So the mission of Pendulum is to connect Fiat to DeFi, because the current problem is that traditional finance services, they are very much disconnected from DeFi, and depending on where you are in the world, they are also very limited in scope. So for that reason, we want to integrate local economies into the blockchain space, and make the whole range of DeFi services available to anybody. Our goal here is to act as an aggregator of quality fiat liquidity that exists scattered throughout the platforms, to allow for forex exchange and also to help establishing and integrating fiat on and off ramps. So in turn, this will hopefully allow people to participate in the exciting world of DeFi from anywhere in the world, and allow them to do so with much less friction than is currently happening. So to help this case, we want to allow bridging among different networks such as Stellar, Ethereum, Cosmos, Polkadot, because we believe that this is really very much needed in the current environment. I'm sure that if anybody tried bridging assets between chains, you probably noticed that options are rather sparse at the moment. So yeah, that is something that we are working on. To give a little bit of a perspective of what is to come, we will participate in the Kusama parachain auction in the second quarter of this year, and following on that, we will also participate in the Polkadot parachain auction in the third quarter of this year. We're going to launch a grants program, so we really wholeheartedly want to invite anybody that is interested in building fiat-focused DeFi services to reach out to us. We'll make sure that you get to meet the right people and that you are receiving assistance and resources wherever needed. And ways to get involved in the current stage is to drop by in our community. We have some great vibes. We have excellent people that are already there. We are going to kick off our waitlist for the crowd launch soon. And yeah, if you want to make use of the perks that come with being early to the waitlist, now is a great time to join our communities. We're also going to launch our ambassador program, where we are really looking forward to working with the great people of this community and hearing your ideas. And we also really want to emphasize that all people that are builders, developers, or teams, please reach out to us. We have a lot of interesting stuff going. You can already play with our prototype to bridge assets from Stellar to Pendulum, also work on a Forex-based AMM already started. So if there's some way that you want to chip in or contribute, then please get in touch. And the best way to find us is to go to our Twitter. That is pendulum_chain. We've got a link tree there. You'll find all the relevant resources here. And yeah, that's a brief about Pendulum. So hopefully that was giving you some idea about what we're doing and managed to grab your interest. And yeah, happy to answer any questions as a follow-up in the community channels. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much, dear Jonathan, for that. Indeed, very, very interesting as well. So we've got Mangata, right, with this MEV prevention DeFi chain, which is quite innovative, SubSpace with file storage. We've got Ajuna for gamers. We've got Pendulum bridging to other ecosystem and bringing Fiat liquidity to all of our platforms. All of them trying to become a parachain. Actually, Mangata is already a Kusama parachain with Mangata X. Ajuna Pendulum shared with us a little bit more on what they're expecting to do there, and Subspace, as we know, for their innovative, very specific consensus mechanism, will need to do something that's slightly bit different, but still providing all of its services to the broader Kusama ecosystem, right? Thank you very much, guys, for your time and for sharing with us everything that you're putting together. We really appreciate you walking us through it, and I'm very excited to see more of the development of what you guys are building here.
Thank you.